The planet Verta 9 hung quietly at the edge of a dying star system. Its surface was covered in blue dust that glowed faintly under the dim light. The air was thin, the wind dry, and the nights colder than any desert on Earth. In this lonely place stood Outpost 47, a small research and communication station built by humans years ago. The outpost was made of steel and thick glass walls that shimmered under the light. Inside, machines hummed softly. Computers blinked with green lights. A tall communication tower stood outside like a silver needle against the sky. It was not much to look at, but it was important. It connected far-off colonies to the central human command. Only a few people lived there. They worked quietly, sending reports and repairing machines. Most thought of this post as punishment duty. It was far away from everything, and there was nothing exciting to see. But one man never complained. His name was Tom. Tom had been a soldier once. He had fought in wars between humans and alien raiders years ago. After the wars ended, he was offered this job as a technician. The officials said it was an easy post, good pay, no trouble. He accepted, but deep inside he knew there was more to it. The outpost systems were far more advanced than what normal research posts used. Some of the technology there was secret, and Tom had been trained to protect it. Tom spent his days checking sensors, fixing signal towers, and running routine scans. At night he sat near the window with a cup of coffee, watching the strange glowing dust float in the wind. Sometimes he saw flashes in the distant sky, maybe meteors, maybe something else. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rocky hills, Tom received a strange signal. It was faint, almost hidden inside a normal transmission. It repeated again and again like a whisper. He frowned and ran a scan. The signal came from outside the system, far beyond the range of human traffic. He called his teammate Mira, who worked in the lower section of the outpost. She was an engineer and handled most of the mechanical systems. Mira arrived quickly, wiping oil from her hands. "What is it this time?" she asked. Tom showed her the screen. "This signal. It doesn't match any human code." She looked closer. "Could be interference." Tom shook his head. "No, it's a pattern. Someone is scanning us." Before she could reply, the lights flickered. For a moment, the whole station went dark. Then the backup systems came online. The main console beeped as warnings flashed across the screen. "Power fluctuation detected," the system announced. Mira ran toward the control panel and began typing commands. "Something just overloaded the relay," she said. "That shouldn't happen unless something is blocking our signal." Tom stared at the radar. The blue screen showed small moving dots near the planet's atmosphere. He zoomed in and his stomach tightened. There were 6 objects entering the sky, moving fast and in formation. "They're not meteors," Tom said. "They're ships." Mira looked up. "Pirates?" He shook his head again. "No human ships move like that. I think they're Drevlon." The name brought silence. The Drevlon were an alien race known for sudden raids on weak colonies. They were tall, cold, and intelligent. They tested human defenses but never attacked strongholds. If they had found this place, it meant they thought Outpost 47 was easy prey. Tom grabbed his communicator. "Dan, report to control room now," he said. Dan was another worker at the outpost, quiet and calm. He usually handled the underground systems. When he arrived, Tom explained what they saw. Dan's eyes narrowed. "Command will not get our signal in time. We have to defend ourselves." Mira gave a nervous laugh. "Defend ourselves?" "We have 1 turret, 3 rifles, and a metal wall." Tom's face stayed serious. "You both know why we were sent here. That reactor beneath us is not just a power core. It's an experimental system. If they take it, Earth loses years of progress." Dan nodded. "Then we don't let them take it." The radar screen beeped again. The 6 Drevlon ships split up. 2 stayed in orbit while 4 dropped into the lower sky. Tom watched the descent data. They were heading straight for the outpost. Outside, the ground began to shake. The air trembled as the alien crafts broke through the atmosphere. Tom rushed to the armory room, opened a secure locker, and pulled out a black combat suit. It was light but strong, made of a special fiber that could resist heat and plasma fire. Mira and Dan followed, grabbing their own gear. They looked at Tom, waiting for instructions. "We hold them off until help arrives," Tom said. "Activate the defense turrets. Bring the shield generator online." Mira blinked. "Shield generator?" "I thought it was offline." Tom smiled slightly. "Not anymore." He opened a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a small terminal. His handprint unlocked the system. Deep under the outpost, ancient machinery came to life. Blue lights pulsed through the ground. A low hum filled the air. Mira stared as the screens lit up with data. I had no idea this place had this much power. It was meant to be a secret, Tom said. Now it's our only chance. Outside, dust storms began to rise as the alien crafts landed near the edge of the valley. Their shapes were dark and sleek, glowing with red light. The Drevlon soldiers stepped out. Their bodies were covered in silver armor that reflected the faint sunlight. Each one carried plasma weapons that hissed with energy. Tom watched through the cameras. He counted 15 soldiers. More were inside the ships. He turned to Mira and Dan. We take the high ground. The turrets will cover the front. Mira, control the defense systems from here. Dan, stay near the reactor and monitor the core. If they break through, seal the lower level. What about you? Mira asked. I'll hold them off outside, Tom said. They'll test our walls first. He opened the door to the outside and stepped into the dry wind. The sand crunched under his boots. The horizon glowed faintly blue. In the distance, he saw the Drevlon soldiers advancing. He lifted his helmet visor, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself. Let's remind them who humans are. The first plasma blast hit the wall near the gate, scattering sparks. The automatic turret responded instantly, firing back with sharp precision. The Drevlon ducked and returned fire. Energy bolts tore across the sand, lighting up the night. Inside, Mira controlled the defense grid. Her fingers moved fast over the controls. The second turret activated, locking on to 2 Drevlon soldiers who were trying to flank from the left. The machines fired and the aliens fell. Dan's voice came through the comms. Reactor is stable. Shield power is at 80%. Keep it steady, Mira said. Tom's out there. Outside, Tom ran between the barriers, using the walls for cover. His rifle shot bursts of blue light. The aliens were strong, but they were not used to human tactics. Tom moved fast, changing positions, forcing them to spread out. The Drevlon commander gave a sharp signal and one of their drones flew up into the sky. It scanned the outpost, sending data to their ships above. The commander thought the humans were weak. He believed a few more minutes and the walls would fall. But something unexpected happened. The ground began to tremble again. Tom smiled. Good timing, Dan, he said. Under the sand, hidden defense platforms rose like towers. Human engineers had built them years ago for emergencies. They came alive now, powered by the reactor. The Drevlon soldiers stopped firing. They realized they had walked into a trap. The turrets turned their barrels toward them. Before they could retreat, a wave of fire and energy erupted from the outpost's defenses. Within seconds, the front line of Drevlon troops was gone. The survivors tried to run back toward their ships, but the ground exploded behind them. Inside, Mira stared at the monitor, speechless. Tom, they're falling back. Tom watched the smoke rise. Good. Let them report what they saw. As the last alien ship lifted off into the dark sky, Tom lowered his weapon and looked toward the stars. He knew this was only the beginning. The Drevlon now understood that this small outpost was not just a research station. It was a test site guarded by humans who never gave up. The silence returned to the desert, broken only by the hum of the defense systems. Mira and Dan joined him outside. Mira looked at the black sky and asked quietly, Do you think they'll come back? Tom nodded slowly. Yes, but next time they'll bring an army. He turned back to the outpost. And we'll be ready. The stars above shimmered faintly as if watching the quiet planet where humans had once again proven that no matter how far from home they went, they would always stand their ground. The night after the first attack was silent again, but it did not feel peaceful. The wind carried a strange sound across the desert, like a low hum that never stopped. Inside Outpost 47, Tom, Mira, and Dan stayed awake. No one trusted the quiet. Tom sat in the control room, scanning the radar again and again. The screen showed no movement. The alien ships that had escaped were gone, but he knew they would come back. The Drevlon never gave up after losing a battle. They studied, planned, and then returned stronger. Mira walked into the room holding a mug of coffee. Her eyes were tired, but she tried to smile. Still watching the screen? Tom nodded. Yes, they are out there somewhere. I can feel it. Dan entered next, holding a datapad filled with reactor readings. The power core is stable, he said. But it took heavy stress during the defense. If they attack again soon, we might not hold the shield for long. Tom leaned back in his chair. We will not have to hold it forever. Command must have received our distress signal by now. They will send backup. Mira sat near the window. The blue dust outside glowed softly under the stars. Do you think they will come in time? She asked. Tom looked at her. They will. Humans never leave their people behind. But deep inside he was not sure. Verta 9 was far away from any major human colony. It could take days before a fleet arrived. He knew they might have to fight again before help came. Morning came with a red sunrise. The three of them started repairs. Mira worked on the turret that had overheated during the last battle. Dan went underground to inspect the reactor systems. Tom checked the communication tower, making sure their distress signal was still active. Everything looked calm. Then, in the afternoon, the radar beeped. Tom turned quickly. The screen showed new contacts. This time there were not 6 ships, there were 15. His heart pounded. The Drevlon had returned and they had brought a full strike team. He called Mira and Dan through the comms. They are coming back. 15 ships inbound. They will be here in 10 minutes. Mira froze. 15? That is not a raid. That is an invasion. Dan's voice came from underground. I will start the reactor boost. We will need all the power we can get. Tom grabbed his rifle and helmet. He ran to the wall terminal and activated every defense system they had. The turrets rotated into position. The energy shield shimmered faintly around the outpost. Warning lights flashed red through the halls. Mira rushed into the control room. All systems ready, she said. The east turret is still weak, but it will hold for a while. Tom nodded. Good. Once they land, target their command ship first. Without orders, their units become slower. Outside, the air grew heavy. The first Drevlon ships entered the sky like burning comets. Their engines roared as they descended. The ground shook. The sand rose in waves. The soldiers inside the ships could already see the metal buildings of Outpost 47 below. Tom stood by the window watching. His face stayed calm, but his hands were steady on the control rifle. He whispered to himself, "Let them come." The Drevlon landed in a half-circle around the base. Their ships opened like claws, releasing dozens of soldiers and drones. The soldiers spread out quickly, setting up plasma cannons and heavy weapons. The drones lifted into the air, scanning for weak points in the shield. Mira looked at the monitor. They are surrounding us. They will try to overload the shield. Let them waste their power, Tom said. When they get close enough, we strike. The first plasma bolts hit the shield. The bright blue barrier shimmered, but held strong. The sound of the impact echoed through the entire outpost. Dan's voice came through the comms. Reactor at 90%. Shield is stable. Mira aimed the turret controls. Targeting drones. She pressed the trigger. The turrets fired. Streams of blue energy into the sky, striking the alien drones one after another. The explosions lit the air like fireworks. Tom smiled. Good shot. Outside, the Drevlon commander Rin watched from his ship. His eyes narrowed as he saw his drones fall. He turned to his second officer. They have stronger defenses than we expected. Focus all fire on the northern section. Break that shield. The alien cannons turned. A wave of plasma hit the same spot again and again. The blue shield began to flicker. Inside, Mira shouted, "The north side is weakening." Tom ran to the wall terminal and rerouted the power manually. Shift energy from the lower systems to the shield. Keep firing. Do not stop. The control room shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The noise was like thunder. Mira's hands trembled as she aimed the turrets, but she kept firing. Then, a sudden explosion outside threw sand and debris into the air. One of the alien cannons had overheated and burst. The shockwave damaged 2 other Drevlon units nearby. Mira let out a breath. Their own weapons are breaking. Tom nodded. They are pushing too hard. Keep pressure on them. Rin slammed his fist against the console in anger. He had lost too many drones. Send the heavy units, he ordered. From the ships, large mechanical walkers stepped out. Each one was the size of a building, armed with multiple plasma barrels. They moved slowly but with unstoppable force. The ground shook with each step. Tom saw them on the radar. Here comes the main wave. Mira, aim for their joints. Dan, prepare to release the counter-drones. Dan's voice replied. Counter-drones armed and ready. Tom waited until the walkers reached firing range. Then he gave the command. Now. From hidden compartments under the sand, small silver machines burst out. These were human combat drones, fast and deadly. They flew straight toward the Drevlon walkers, dodging plasma blasts and firing magnetic charges. The first walker lost a leg and fell into the sand. The second one stumbled as its control system burned. Mira smiled for the first time that day. They are falling. Tom looked at the screen. Keep going. Do not give them a chance to recover. Inside the alien command ship, Rin could not believe his eyes. He had fought humans before, but never ones this far from the core systems, never ones this prepared. He turned to his officers. Who are they? No one answered. Back at the outpost, Tom and Mira fought side by side. The sound of explosions mixed with the wind. The heat made the air shimmer. Every time an alien unit got close, Tom's rifle spoke. His aim was perfect. Years of training guided his every move. Mira kept adjusting the power levels, making sure the shield stayed alive. The energy readings were dropping fast. She shouted, "Shield at 40%, we are running out of power." Tom looked at the sky. He could see 2 Drevlon ships moving toward the outpost. They are going to try a drop assault, he said. Get ready for close combat. He grabbed his sidearm and moved toward the main gate. The door opened and the hot air hit his face. 2 Drevlon soldiers jumped from their ship, landing hard on the sand. Their armor gleamed under the sun. They aimed plasma rifles at him. Tom rolled to the side and fired. One alien fell. The second one fired back, burning a mark into the ground. Tom ran forward, closing the distance. He struck the alien with the butt of his rifle, knocking it down. Mira watched from the camera feed and whispered, "Come on, Tom." The alien tried to rise, but Tom pulled a charge from his belt and threw it under the soldier's arm plate. The explosion threw sand into the air. When it cleared, the alien was gone. He ran back inside, breathing hard. They are testing us, he said. They are not trying to win yet. They are learning how we fight. Mira looked at him. Then what happens when they finish learning? Tom's eyes hardened. Then we show them something they can never learn. Dan's voice came from below. The reactor is heating up. If we keep this up, it will overload. Tom thought for a moment. We will hold the shield until the last possible second. When they get close enough, we release the surge. It will blind their sensors and shut down their systems for a short time. Mira nodded. That could work, but it is dangerous. We have no choice, Tom said. They will break through otherwise. Minutes later, the Drevlon pushed closer. The shield flickered and cracked. The sky turned red with plasma fire. The noise was deafening. Dan shouted through the comms, "Core ready for surge on your command." Tom took a deep breath. Do it. The reactor below the base released a burst of pure energy. Blue light shot through every cable and wall. Outside, a shockwave spread across the desert, knocking down the Drevlon soldiers and shutting off their weapons. The massive walkers froze mid-step. Tom looked through the window and smiled. Now they know humans do not run. The desert was silent again, but the battle was far from over. The Drevlon commander's ship hovered in the distance, still untouched. Inside, Rin watched the chaos and clenched his jaw. He had underestimated the humans, and now he was angry. He turned to his second officer. Prepare the elite soldiers. We end this in person. Tom did not know it yet, but the next wave would be far worse. The Drevlon were no longer testing them. Now they were coming to destroy them completely. Smoke drifted above the valley where Outpost 47 stood. The blue sand was blackened with burn marks and broken metal. The remains of Drevlon drones lay scattered across the desert. The air smelled of heat and dust. Inside the outpost, Tom, Mira, and Dan worked quickly to repair the systems that had survived. The attack had ended, but they knew it was only a pause. The Drevlon were not defeated. Their main ship still hovered far above the atmosphere, silent and waiting. Tom knew they were planning the next move. Mira sat at the main console, her eyes fixed on the data screens. "Shield at 20%, she said. "Reactor is cooling, but slowly. If they attack again now, we will not last long." Dan wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the reactor controls. "We can reroute power from the defense drones to the shield," he said. "That might buy us time." Tom looked at both of them. "No, we will not hide behind the shield again. This time we fight back before they reach the walls." Mira turned to him in surprise. "How? We have no ships, no heavy weapons, and only 3 people." Tom walked to the locker in the corner. He opened it and pulled out a small black case. When he set it on the table and opened it, Mira and Dan leaned forward. Inside were several metal cylinders and a strange device that looked like a wristband. "These are EMP charges," Tom said. "Short range, but powerful enough to shut down Drevlon electronics. I was ordered to keep them safe in case of invasion." Mira smiled faintly. "You really came prepared for a war, didn't you?" Tom nodded. "This place was never meant to be just a research post. It is a field test for new defense technology. That is why the Drevlon came here. They want to steal what we have." Dan looked serious. "Then we make sure they get nothing." Tom placed one of the EMP charges on the table. "When the next wave comes, we let them land. We let them think we are weak. Then we trigger these and strike back." Mira frowned. "That sounds dangerous. What if we get caught in the blast?" Tom gave a small grin. "We will stay inside the shielded sections. The blast will only reach their machines." Outside, the wind carried the distant sound of engines. The Drevlon were moving again. Tom stood and tightened his armor straps. "Positions," he said. "This time we ended on our terms." Dan stayed in the lower section to monitor the reactor and control the energy flow. Mira went to the turret control room to prepare the targeting systems. Tom moved to the outer wall, watching the horizon. The sky was turning gray as clouds gathered. Lightning flashed in the distance, turning the sand into a sea of light. Soon, shapes appeared on the edge of the desert. They were Drevlon ships, larger than before. Their hulls glowed with red markings and their engines left trails of fire behind them. Tom raised his communicator. "Here they come. Keep calm and follow the plan." The first ship landed close to the outpost. The sand blew into the air as its doors opened. Tall Drevlon soldiers stepped out carrying heavy plasma rifles. They walked forward slowly, scanning the ground. Their leader wore silver armor that shone even under the dim light. His helmet was marked with a red crest. Tom whispered to himself. "So the commander has come." The Drevlon soldiers spread out. They expected no resistance. They believed the humans had been weakened from the last battle. One of them approached the broken turret near the gate. He aimed his scanner at it, unaware that a small EMP device had been placed inside earlier. Tom pressed a button on his wristband. A wave of blue light flashed across the sand. The Drevlon soldiers froze as their weapons shut down. Their armor lights went dark. The red glow in their helmets faded. One by one, their systems stopped working. "Now!" Tom shouted. From inside the base, the turrets came alive again. Mira aimed and fired. The blue energy bolt struck the stunned Drevlon soldiers before they could recover. Several fell before they could move. The others stumbled back, trying to restart their systems. Dan's voice came through the comms. "Reactor power stable. You have full charge for weapons." Tom ran forward from behind the wall, firing his rifle with precision. The Drevlon were strong, but without their armor's power systems, they were slow. Tom moved fast, using every bit of cover he could find. Mira saw him on the cameras and covered his path with turret fire. "Left side clear," she said. Tom nodded and threw another EMP charge toward the second group of soldiers. The blast hit them before they could take aim. Blue sparks danced over their armor as they fell. From above, the Drevlon commander saw his soldiers falling one by one. His face was hidden behind his helmet, but his anger was clear in his movements. He turned to his pilot. "Activate the groundwalkers. I want this outpost burned to ash." The ship's cargo doors opened and 2 massive Drevlon walkers dropped from the sky. They landed with a heavy thud that shook the sand. Each one stood taller than the outpost tower and carried 2 plasma cannons on its shoulders. Mira gasped as she saw them on the screen. "Tom, 2 heavy walkers incoming." Tom looked up. "I see them. Aim for the joints and power cores. The turrets open fire." The blue beams hit the walkers' legs, but the armor was thick. Sparks flew, but they kept walking. They raised their cannons and fired. The ground exploded near the walls, sending waves of sand through the air. Inside, Dan worked quickly to balance the power. The shield flickered, then steadied again. He spoke through the comms. Shield holding, but not for long. Tom ran toward the storage bay and grabbed a long tube-shaped weapon. It was an anti-armor launcher, one of the last heavy weapons they had. He aimed at the nearest walker and fired. The rocket flew through the air and hit the side of the machine, bursting into flame. The walker stumbled, its left leg damaged, but it did not fall. Mira switched the turret fire to the same target. "We can bring it down if we focus on the weak point," she said. Together, they poured fire into the damaged area until the metal cracked. The walker tilted, then collapsed sideways, crashing into the sand with a loud boom. The second walker fired again, striking the outpost shield. The blue energy rippled like water. Mira winced as sparks flew from her console. "We cannot take another hit like that," she said. Tom ran across the sand toward a nearby ridge. He carried the last EMP charge in his hand. The second walker turned its cannons toward him. Energy built up inside its weapons. Tom threw the charge at the ground just below the walker's feet and dropped flat. The explosion of blue light blinded everything for a moment. When the light faded, the walker's cannon stopped glowing. Its power core had been shut down. Tom stood up and aimed his rifle at the exposed vent under the machine's head. He fired several shots. The machine sparked, shook, and then collapsed beside its twin. Silence returned. The smoke rose into the gray sky. Tom lowered his weapon and breathed slowly. Inside, Mira stared at the radar. No more movement. "I think that was the last of them," Dan spoke from below. "Reactor still stable. We are safe for now." Tom walked back to the gate. The sand around him was blackened and hot. The Drevlon bodies lay still, their armor lifeless. He looked toward the sky. The main Drevlon ship was still there, unmoving. He raised his communicator. "They are watching. They want to know how we fight. They are learning from every battle." Mira joined him outside, her face serious. "Then what do we do when they come again?" Tom turned to her. "We show them why humans are feared. We take the fight to them." She looked surprised. "You mean attack their ship?" He nodded. "They think we are trapped, but their sensors are damaged from the EMP. If we launch the drones now, they will not see them coming." Dan's voice came through. "The drones are armed and ready. I can program them to attach to the Drevlon hull and overload their energy systems." Tom smiled. "Do it. Let's send them a message." Minutes later, small human drones rose from hidden bays beneath the sand. They were shaped like metallic birds, fast and silent. They climbed into the clouds and disappeared from sight. Inside the Drevlon ship, alarms started to ring. The pilot looked at the commander. Unidentified objects approaching, too small to lock on. Before they could react, the drones attached themselves to the ship's surface. One by one, they released surges of energy. The Drevlon ship's lights flickered. Systems failed. Engines powered down. The commander shouted orders, but it was too late. The giant ship began to drift out of control, falling slowly toward the planet. Tom watched from the ground as fire streaked across the sky. "That is for attacking us," he said quietly. The ship crashed far beyond the hills, sending a shockwave through the desert. The sound echoed for miles. The three humans stood together, watching the smoke rise. Mira finally spoke. "Do you think they will send more after this?" Tom nodded. "They will. The Drevlon never forget, but now they know that even at the edge of the galaxy, humans stand their ground." The sun broke through the clouds, lighting the battlefield in gold. The outpost, though damaged, still stood. Its towers and walls cast long shadows over the desert. Tom looked at Mira and Dan. "We survived again. Let's make sure we can do it a third time." They walked back into the outpost together, ready to repair what was broken. None of them knew what the next day would bring, but they all shared one thought. If the Drevlon came again, they would be waiting. And this time they would be ready to strike first. The sun on Verda 9 was dim, hidden behind layers of thick blue clouds. The ground trembled slightly as explosions echoed across the dry valley. The outpost walls were half broken, smoke rising from several points where plasma shots had struck earlier. Inside the main control room, Tom, Mira, and Dan stood surrounded by flickering lights. Their faces tired but focused. The alien army, led by Commander Rin of the Drevlon, was preparing for a final attack. They had already lost half their machines and soldiers but were not ready to give up. From the orbiting ship, Rin watched the battle through his command screen. He felt anger, confusion, and fear all mixed together. Humans had surprised him again and again. Every plan he made, they broke it with something he could not predict. He turned to his officers and said, "Send the elite units. I want the outpost taken before the next rotation of the planet. Crush their defense and show them who rules this galaxy." The Drevlon elite were not ordinary soldiers. They were huge, tall, and built for war. Their armor was thick, their reflexes fast, and they felt no pain. When they landed on the sand near the outpost, the ground shook. The humans saw them through the outer cameras. Mira frowned. "Those are not drones," she said quietly. "Those are living ones, and they are big." Tom tightened the straps of his combat armor. "Then we fight them like humans do, smart and together." Dan was in the lower level of the base, controlling the power core. The core was the heart of the outpost. It powered everything, from shields to defense systems. But if damaged, it could destroy the whole valley. He spoke through the communicator. "I can give you more power for shields, but if we push it too much, it might overheat." "Do it," Tom said firmly. "We need to hold this line no matter what." Mira took her position near the turret controls. She checked the ammunition and turned the defense drones toward the main gate. Tom went outside, the wind pushing against him. He could see dark figures moving through the dust storm. The Drevlon elites were advancing slowly but steadily. When the first alien reached the defense perimeter, Tom pressed the detonator. A series of explosions ripped through the sand. The hidden mines that humans had planted earlier went off, sending dust and debris flying into the air. Several aliens fell, but others kept walking, unfazed by the shockwave. Tom moved forward, taking cover behind a half-broken wall. He fired short bursts from his rifle. The plasma bolts from the aliens hit near him, melting parts of the metal wall. Mira activated the turrets and blue beams shot out, cutting through the enemy ranks. The Drevlon elites roared, their strange metallic voices echoing across the battlefield. One of them jumped high and landed just a few meters from Tom. The alien swung a heavy weapon that glowed with red energy. Tom ducked, rolled to the side, and fired at the alien's exposed joint. The shot pierced through and sparks flew. But the alien didn't fall. It turned its head toward him and charged again. Tom waited for the right moment. As the alien raised its weapon, Tom pressed another button on his wrist panel. A small bomb on the alien's leg exploded, throwing it backward. This time it didn't rise. Tom exhaled slowly, sweat running down his forehead. Inside the base, Mira's hands moved quickly on the control board. She directed fire from the turrets toward the heaviest clusters of enemies. Every time she saw Tom in danger on the screen, she shifted the fire to cover him. She didn't say a word, but her focus was sharp. Dan's voice came again. "The core temperature is rising fast. We have maybe 15 minutes before it reaches critical level. After that, I can't promise anything," Tom replied calmly. "Hold it together as long as you can. We will end this before that." The Drevlon forces regrouped for another push. Commander Rin watched from his ship, his eyes glowing with anger. "They fight like nothing we've seen," he said. "How can such a small group hold this long?" His second officer, a younger alien, replied, "They are human, Commander. Their ways are not like ours." Rin slammed his clawed hand on the control table. "Then we will teach them fear." Down below, the aliens began to fire at the energy shield. Bright waves of light flickered as the shield took the hits. Mira saw the readings drop. "The shield is going down," she shouted. Tom looked up at the shimmering barrier above the base. "Dan, if the core fails, we need to make sure it doesn't blow the whole place." Dan's fingers moved over the console. He rerouted some of the power to cooling systems. The room around him grew hotter, but he stayed focused. "I can manage it, but if you lose the shield, you'll be open to direct fire." Tom took a deep breath. "Then we fight without it." The next blast hit the shield hard and the blue light vanished. The outpost was now fully exposed. The aliens advanced quickly, firing from all sides. Mira switched to manual turret mode and began shooting nonstop. The turrets whirred, spitting energy bolts that tore through the attackers. Tom grabbed a heavy weapon from a supply crate, a railgun meant for base defense. He set it on a metal stand and aimed at the advancing aliens. Each shot from the railgun punched through multiple enemies at once. The air filled with light, dust, and the smell of burnt metal. Still, the Drevlon elites came closer. One of them broke through the outer wall, throwing debris aside like paper. Tom met it head-on. The alien swung again, But this time Tom caught the weapon between his arms, twisted, and used the alien's strength against it. The alien stumbled, and Tom drove his knife into its chest plate, right where the armor was weakest. The creature fell motionless. He turned back toward the base, shouting, "Mira, how many left?" "Too many," she replied, still firing. "But they're slowing down." At that moment, a bright warning light flashed on Dan's console. He checked the readings and froze. The power core was reaching overload. The heat level was beyond safe limits. He grabbed the communicator. "Tom, listen carefully. The core will explode in 5 minutes if we don't shut it down. It's unstable." Tom paused, breathing heavily. He looked around at the damage, at the broken walls and the dead machines. Then he looked toward the sky, where the Drevlon command ship floated like a shadow. "If it's going to blow, we'll make it count." Dan hesitated. "You mean—" "Yes," Tom said. "We use it as a weapon. Get ready to trigger it remotely. But wait until I give the signal." Mira heard it too. She turned to Tom, her face pale. "That will destroy everything." Tom nodded. "It will stop them from coming again." The aliens pushed once more, their last desperate attempt to take the base. Tom and Mira fought side by side, covering each other as the enemy broke through the inner gates. The sound of plasma fire filled the air, and the ground shook with each explosion. Finally, Tom shouted into the comm, "Dan, now!" Dan looked at the power core. The light inside it was blinding. He pressed the final switch and ran toward the exit tunnel. The ground began to rumble. Tom and Mira ran out of the main building, heading toward the valley's edge. Behind them, the base glowed brighter and brighter. The Drevlon soldiers stopped, realizing too late what was happening. The explosion came like a storm of white light. The shockwave rolled across the desert, swallowing the alien army and shaking the mountains. From orbit, Commander Rin's ship was hit by the blast's energy. His officers screamed as the systems failed. He stared at the burning planet and whispered, "What kind of species are they?" As the light faded, silence returned to Verta 9. Dust covered everything. Tom and Mira lay on the ground behind a ridge, breathing hard but alive. The outpost was gone, but so were the Drevlon elites. Dan's voice came through weakly on the comm. "I'm okay. It's over." Tom looked toward the horizon. The sun was rising again, its light cutting through the clouds. He said quietly, "They thought we were easy prey. Now they know what happens when humans stand their ground." Mira smiled faintly. "They'll remember this." Tom nodded. "They better. Because if they come again, we'll be ready." The three of them sat in the silence of the new day, surrounded by the ruins of the battle. The war was far from over, but humanity had sent a message across the stars. They were not weak. They were not afraid, and they would never surrender. The dust slowly settled over the valley of Verta 9. Outpost 47 was no more. Its walls had collapsed, and the towers lay broken in the sand. Smoke still rose from the remains, but the battle was over. The blue sand that once shimmered under the sun was now darkened by scorch marks and debris. Tom, Mira, and Dan stood together on a ridge, looking down at the battlefield. Their armor was scratched and scorched, and their faces were covered with dust. Yet they stood tall. They had survived, and more importantly, they had won. Dan wiped sweat from his brow. "It's quiet now." "Too quiet," Mira nodded. "I keep expecting them to come back." Tom stayed silent, looking at the horizon. He could see the remnants of the Drevlon command ship far beyond the mountains. It had crashed after the last surge from the reactor. The alien commander, Rin, and his officers were not moving. The humans had destroyed enough to teach a lesson. Tom turned to his teammates. "They are not coming back for now, but when they do, we will be ready." Mira looked around at the destroyed outpost. "We lost a lot here." "Yes," Tom said. "But we also gained something important. We showed them what humans can do. That is worth more than walls or towers." From the distant sky, a small fleet of human ships appeared. They had been hidden in stealth orbit, observing the battle from afar. Now they descended toward the planet, shining white and silver in the pale sunlight. Tom smiled. "Backup has arrived." The ships landed carefully, scanning for any remaining Drevlon forces. Soldiers in white and blue armor disembarked, moving quickly to secure the area. They carried advanced weapons, drones, and supplies to rebuild the outpost if necessary. One of the lead officers approached Tom. "Commander Tom," he said, "we received your distress signal. It seems you handled more than expected. Are there any survivors?" Tom gestured to Mira and Dan. "We are the only ones. The rest was destroyed, but the Drevlon lost more than we did." The officer nodded, studying the valley. We will start recovery immediately. The Drevlon will hear about this. Tom knew they would. The Drevlon were intelligent. They would report back to their homeworld about what happened. Humans had defended a small, isolated outpost with just 3 soldiers and destroyed a major alien fleet. That would not be forgotten. Mira looked at the wreckage of the turrets and the walls. Do you think we can rebuild this place? Tom shook his head. Not like before. But we don't need to rebuild walls. Humans are not protected by metal. We are protected by our courage, our teamwork, and our ability to think. That is what scares the Drevlon. Dan smiled faintly. They came to test us. And we passed, Tom nodded. They learned something they will never forget. Humans do not give up, we do not run, and we never fight alone. The human reinforcements began to work, scanning the valley for any remaining Drevlon soldiers. They found small groups of drones and miner squads, but all were destroyed by the previous EMP and reactor surge. The valley was secure. Commander Tom and his team walked down from the ridge toward the incoming human fleet. Soldiers saluted them as they passed, recognizing the bravery of 3 humans who had held back an alien force far larger than themselves. One of the human officers spoke quietly to Tom. We have never seen a defense like this before. They will write records about this for generations. Tom looked at Mira and Dan, then back at the valley. Let them write. We don't fight for glory. We fight to protect what is ours. Above the planet, the Drevlon command ship had crashed beyond the mountains. Commander Rin survived, but was badly injured. As he sent a report to his homeworld, he wrote in sharp words, Humans are not to be underestimated. Even in small numbers, they fight beyond logic. They defend everything they hold dear with skill and courage. They are dangerous. They are not like any other species we have encountered. The report spread across the Drevlon fleets, reaching all corners of their civilization. The other alien commanders discussed the humans in secret. Some feared future encounters. Others respected the bravery of the defenders of Outpost 47. All agreed that humans were now a force they had to consider seriously. Back on the planet, Tom, Mira, and Dan sat in the remains of the command room. They shared water and rations, exhausted but alive. The sun warmed their faces as the smoke faded into the distance. Mira finally spoke. Do you think humans will always be ready for them? Tom looked at her thoughtful. We cannot be everywhere, but we will always fight where it matters. And if we teach the next generation what we know, they will be ready too. Dan nodded. They will know how to survive, how to fight, and how to protect each other. Tom smiled faintly. That is what makes us human. That is what gives us strength beyond any weapon. The human ships began scanning for resources. They collected what remained of the outpost and salvaged the weapons. Some of the drones that survived were upgraded for future missions. Engineers discussed plans to build new outposts, but this time with improved systems and stronger defenses. Tom, Mira, and Dan were called to meet with the fleet commander. He looked at them seriously. You 3 have changed the course of history here. The Drevlon will think twice before attacking any human colony in this sector again. Your bravery and skill have proven something very important, that humans are not just survivors. Humans are warriors. Tom looked at his teammates and nodded. We only did what we had to do. The fleet commander smiled. And that is exactly what makes humans unstoppable. As night fell over Verta 9, Tom, Mira, and Dan stood on a cliff looking at the stars. The galaxy was vast and there were dangers everywhere, but they felt a sense of pride. The Drevlon had learned the cost of underestimating humans. The message would spread across the stars. Humans could fight, humans could defend, and humans could never be controlled. Mira leaned on Tom's shoulder. Do you think they will come again? Tom looked at the horizon. They might, but next time we will be even stronger. Humans always learn. Humans always adapt, and humans always fight to survive. Dan joined them, looking up at the sky. Then let them come. We are ready. The stars sparkled above, bright and distant. In the silence of the valley, 3 humans stood together, unbroken, determined, and proud. Outpost 47 was gone, but the lesson it taught the Drevlon would live forever. The galaxy had seen what humans could do. They had faced impossible odds, defended what was theirs, and survived against a far superior enemy. Now the Drevlon, and any other who might threaten humanity, would know one undeniable truth. Humans were a force to be reckoned with. Tom, Mira, and Dan stayed for a long while, watching the calm valley. The battle had ended, but the story of bravery, courage, and human strength would travel far beyond the stars. Somewhere in the universe, the Drevlon recorded the events of Verta 9. They studied humans carefully, noting every strategy, every trick, every act of courage. But one thing could not be recorded or calculated: the spirit of humanity. Tom spoke quietly, almost to himself. They can study us all they want. They will never understand us completely. And that is why we will always be ready. Mira smiled. Then the galaxy better learn fast. Dan laughed softly. Yes, the galaxy better learn that humans do not give up. The three of them stood together as the first human fleet ships lifted back into orbit, leaving Verta 9 behind. The planet was still dangerous, but it had been defended. The Drevlon had learned their lesson. The stars above shone brighter than ever, as if acknowledging the courage of the humans who had fought against impossible odds and survived. And far away across the cold reaches of space, the message spread silently, carried in every report, every transmission, and every memory. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were fighters, protectors, and warriors, and they would never be underestimated again. The end.